So hello everyone. Today we are talking about PMP. I have been talking about Scrum and Agile for a while, but today we have a professional who would like to discuss about the PMP exam thing. Now, many of you might be aware that PMP exam format is expected to change from January 2021. And some of you who might have tried giving PMP exam or might be thinking of using next 2 months to make good use of your time. How can you prepare in this 2 month time? That's something we are focusing. And we have a participant who tried PMP exam recently, but he has some questions that how should he plan for his subsequent attempt. Yeah. So, okay, I understand from your result and offline discussion that you were very close to passing the exam. So that much is very clear. And I see based on your report that planning was little weak. I think the weakest section out of 5 domain is the planning. And then the second one was coming about executing, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your exam experience and before we plan for what should you do in the next 2 months.
Sure. So I had my exam scheduled on this 31st of October. And basically, like the format was that what I earlier read online was that it should be a 4-hour stretch complete. But this time what happened when I was doing so on question number, I think 89, I was not able to proceed further. Then when I asked the proctor who is actually examining, he told me that it might be a time for you to take a break for 10 minutes. And once you click that, you have an option whether you want to go for the break or whether you want to continue your exam. So I opted to continue my exam. And basically the format was pretty same what I've read online and what was present in the mock test provided by Eisenbridge. It was questions were mostly focused on the situational questions.
Okay. And you see your result coming in where planning domain is coming little poor. So what do you think? What went right or what went wrong in the planning domain? If you think about your specific experience, what do you feel needs to be fixed?
I think what actually went wrong was, though I was practicing a lot of mock, but looks like the questions in that were mainly like what the project manager should do next, those kind of scenarios. And also there were a couple of questions related to float. Like as per the PMP, I'm not supposed to discuss the questions, but there were questions regarding the float. And so I was following the approach that you told on your course material, following the forward bias and the backward to calculate the early start and then do. But looks like a lot of questions were there where you have to find the float for a particular activity. And since I was doing a lot of calculations, so I think I spent considerable amount of time on those questions. And if I would have known any like shortcut or anything that could have saved my time, maybe I should have focused more on other situational questions. That is another thing. Yeah, I think.
So ultimately, you had kind of a time shortage when you were rushing towards finishing the exam. You felt like the time was not enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And like when you were answering the questions for the planning domain primarily, like how were you feeling? You were feeling confident, and then when you saw the result, you feel a little weird that okay, what happened? Or you were giving the answer and you were kind of feeling that you are not sure what you are answering?
Actually, some of the questions I was not feeling confident. I think one of the reasons what I figure out that when I practice, usually you have a clock that ticks down like 1 hour left, 2 hour left. But in the PMP, it was like out of 240 in the reverse order. So every time I was trying to solve a question, I was trying to see how much time has left and am I in pace with the number of questions and the amount of time. So I think like when you have a clock ticking, you get a better idea like, okay, this is much minutes are left, this much hours is left. But I was just following that numbers. And I think maybe that is one of the reasons I miscalculated. Like it was less time than I thought. And I was spending more time on a couple of questions. So that is, and I think also the break, which was supposed to be taken, I thought that I can, since I was in the flow, I should continue the exam. But it was, I think, a mistake because I should have taken the break. Though it was a 10-minute break, but it would have allowed me to, lower my nervousness and focus more on the remaining questions. The only downside was that since I cannot review the questions that I've attempted before the break, so that was another thing that kept in my mind, that what if I found that the question that I attempted earlier was not correct, and if I take the break, I won't be getting an option to correct it. But if I continue my exam without taking a break, I might get an option to correct the previous question. So I think those things.
So finally, you got that chance to correct your previous question or not?
No, actually, since there was one question, because that was related to some other questions later on. And so as I told you that there was some time crunch, so I quickly went back and corrected it. But since I cannot see the results of my attempt, like in a mock, I can see what I did wrong, what I did correct. But in actual PMP, you cannot. So I'm not sure the answer that I gave at that time was correct or not.
See, what I am sensing is right now, whatever the three things you have shared, it was majorly a time management issue and the stress because of the time and the exam, which made you perform a little not at par with your knowledge in the exam. So that much I am sensing, because you were always worried about the time. Looks like, yeah, whenever you were answering the question, the time is something which was getting in your head. The break calculation also, you were always like thinking of the time and ability to come back and review it. And
so
I think taking, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I would like to mention is that if you calculate manually, like the amount of time you have, the number of questions, so it is roughly around 1.2 minutes per question. So it's a kind of psychological thing. You think that you don't have enough time. So instead of taking proper timing solve question, that is not an option. You have to be quick and you have to be correct. So maybe I was in too much hurry, because definitely speed was also a concern. But like maybe I would have, like, I don't know, maybe if I spent more time on questions, I would have, like, there would be a time crunch. But if I have answered on time, maybe the answers might be wrong.
Okay. So one of the things which made you spend time, which I'm sensing is something related to the calculations. Yeah. So I'm using the word calculation rather than getting into a specific things. And how many calculation related challenges you got, like in general, just to understand how much time went there, for example?
I think there were like around 6 to 7.
Okay, yeah. So 6 to 7 were the place where you might have taken more than average time, I can say. Like, say, rather than spending 1 point some minutes, you might have spent 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
I mean, there were a couple of scenarios where, like, I don't know what happened to me. Means there was like for them, like there are multiple formulas for a particular thing, and I went ahead with a particular formula, and later on I realized, okay, this is not the answer I'm getting out of the options. Then I think I've used the wrong formula. I corrected the formula, I got the right answer, but in that all thing, I like wasted a couple of minutes time.
Yeah. So this is one thing I'm getting. So 6-7 question though. 6-7 question is like formula, you did something, you didn't match the answer, you go back, you review it, and it kind of took a time, which can be fixed if you practice more on the formula related stuff. So it's just a practice, nothing else is needed. You will be able to detect things faster also because of the practice. Kind of a shortcut will emerge automatically. Where you think the other area than this mathematical space, the time was going, like what was the other thing which was eating your time?
Other than that, I would say I think I was a bit too nervous actually. So I was preparing for the last 3 or 4 months. And when you give a mock, you have a mindset, okay, if this score doesn't go good, you can give one more mock. But I had a kind of pressure that this is the final exam day and this is your last option, so you need to be very good. So I still remember, like, when I started my exam, for the next 5 or at least 10 minutes, I was very much nervous. And I spent a lot of time in calming myself and like giving up the exams, because like during the actual exam, I was able to like stretch for 4 hours during the mock. But here I was feeling some kind of uneasiness. I don't know for what reason, maybe because it was the main exam. So I thought, in that way, I have to go through a question multiple times. It was not a big question. It was like at least 1.5 line question, but I have to go to 2-3 times and check the answers. Earlier, I used to have like one complete read and then I have to focus on the options. But now in the actual exam, I have to like focus a lot. Like I have to go through 2-3 times to the question before selecting. So that was the thing.
In a sense, Vic, I can think it was a nervousness which was resulting into time pressure. And once the time pressure was coming, the nervousness was increasing. And since the nervousness was increasing, you end up missing it by a margin. Yeah, can we do it like this? Great. Now, how do we solve that? That's the second thing. What do you think can work? One is a practice. What is other idea you are coming? You also spoke about conceptual thing like what is next. Is there any other conceptual space where you kind of felt that you are struggling while you were giving exam? You were not confident. One concept stage I was picking up is that what is next? Yeah, was that a struggle? That's another confirmation I need. Or is there anything else which was struggling you when you were doing that the exam?
No, I think that was the main thing, like what the PM should do next, those kind of scenarios, because I think it is not something where you can generalize it and then expect the same thing to come exam. Every question of what a PM should do next is different. It is, though there is a possibility if I would have given 2,000 more questions, then I would have able to, because now I'm covering more scenarios. But I still gave like around 1,200 and I thought that I should have given more so that if something exam that I would have practiced earlier in the mock, those kind of next questions, I would have able to clear the exam.
Great. So what I say here is, and let's talk about the future path forward. The what is next is something easy to crack, provided, definitely practice is needed. It is primarily indirectly linked with input output and the second process which might take that output. So for like whatever the scenario comes, we need to see this scenario probably mapped to which process. And then we need to see this process generates what output. And this output is an input to which process. And out of the 4 options, which one is the nearest, which is taking the output generated by a scenario question is something you should be doing next. Sometimes there could be a close thing because outputs like change request may go to multiple places, or output update in project management plan or update in a some time plan may go into a multiple places, but it is more or less like that. So my usual advice, which I give to PMP test taker, is that whenever you are reading the question, when you practice well, you should be quickly identify that, okay, which process we are in. And once you know which process you are in, what probably you will do after this process. There is no fixed sequence from one process to another process, but there is a fair amount of understanding that in general, after this process, you do a particular one. The PMBOK has that mind diagram where they show there is a process and the output of a process goes to the next processes. Yeah, you might have seen.
Yeah. Yes.
And each process you see the 3-4 processes coming next. Yeah. And that's a kind of a flow which is getting validated in what next. So it's a matter of a practice, but it's easy to crack. It is nothing like at least you can save time there. You don't have to spend too much time thinking about it once you start detecting the process. And whenever you see the option, you can also detect which process this option is talking about. So you have a process in the question, you have a processes in the options. Now you just need to map, okay, this process leading to which process. And as soon as you map, you have an answer.
So one more thing. So actually, like when I was preparing online, so I found something known as, you might have heard of Rita Maluki.
Yeah. Rita's
book, yeah. So she has something known as process charts where where like whatever process you are saying, they are listed in a particular order. So, and each process has some kind of action. So when you see a question, you can actually see which. So I was following that approach in solving. And also there's something known as where ideal PM scenario. So where the questions where we have like what the PM should do next. So if you know characteristics of a PM, like he should be more doing by himself, all the other like bunch of properties, you can actually tell like which option is correct, what an ideal PM should do. But in situational questions, what I faced, I was kind of confused because two options made perfect sense. Like he could have either gone for option A or option B.
Perfect.
Like how ideal PM could have done anything.
Yes.
And regarding process thing, they actually don't write the exact name of the process.
I know they will not.
They quote in such a sentence that, okay, this is the process that,
Perfect.
okay, like
Perfect.
you take time to figure out that process.
Yes.
So first thing is, should I stop following that process?
So let me suggest here. See, the process chart was something, a great resource, but this was made around 10 years ago or maybe before that. So the lot of PMBOK revisions has happened, but the process chart has hardly got updated, that's the thing. The another thing is that now the PMBOK 6 especially, it is more about circulating things frequently. So like you go back and forth, there is no one flow now, especially when we look into the exam. So that chart is good enough to generate a basic understanding, but the PMBOK idea of the map after this process, these are the possible processes, is a good thing to look into. And then you can say the ideal PM thing is a good, I would say it's a kind of a foundational understanding to eliminate between two options. Yeah. So it's like this, that when you see both the options are right, you may need to figure it out. What should I do first? And that's the only thing which can help you when you see two alternatives which are fitting there. So I say, and all these things should converge to each other. There is no, like, if all these paths are right, they should lead to the same answer. Someone might be solving it with the help of the process chart. Someone might be helping using the PMBOK mind map to solve the answer, but the answer should be the same if it is converging to a same thing. So my idea is process chart has little bit limited scenarios when you look into today's context. It was a good one-page diagram 10 years ago, but now you have more and more things coming in. So it's difficult to just keep them in a sequence and put it in a particular way. So better focus on the PMBOK view of detecting the process in the question, detecting the process in the options. And when you see two scenarios are very close, then I usually give this advice. You need to go in a space like acknowledge, analyze, and act. So these are like three sequences you usually do as a PM. So whatever happens, if there is something, you need to acknowledge. You need to say, yeah, this has happened. We understand this is a problem. That's the first thing to do. And once you have acknowledged the problem, then second thing you do is analyze. So whatever is there, you analyze what are the pros and cons of it. And once you have analyzed, then you act. So sometimes question will trick you to directly put an act as an option, which might be a right act, yeah, but may not be the only act one has to do. Maybe there could be other alternatives which one can take, provided the person acknowledge and analyze. So I would say that you definitely think of as an ideal PM. That's a great idea to say not to always escalate, try to take a control of the situation, focus on keeping transparency, focus on looking customer interest first. So that's all is a good idea. Use the process understanding, I would say process diagrams to see what probably will be the next thing. And when you have a close options, apply the simple formula of acknowledge, analyze, act. And whichever is coming first, you take the option, that one. If you get an acknowledge option should work. If you see an analyze option before act option, analyze option should be chosen. And if you see just an act option, or if the question already talk about the analyze and acknowledgement has already been done, then you may directly go into an act option. Yeah.
Okay. So another thing is that a lot of times, like this question itself contains the action item and the options contain the name of that action item. So for example, the PM was already formalizing the acceptance of the deliverable, which actually means validate scope. Now, the thing is that I'm not sure whether that process has been performed or whether he's asking me to perform now. Are you getting my question?
So what I'm saying here is that you see a scenario and you may not clear that what has been done before this scenario or what will happen after the scenario? Is this the way you are interpreting the question?
I'm saying that whatever the question is mentioned, the last line of that question usually says that PM is doing XYZ thing, and the name of that process is already mentioned in the options. Okay, so I'm not sure whether that option is already performed by the PM, or he's about to perform, because the definition of the option is already written in the question.
What I understand based on what I'm hearing is, if I'm saying that see, the project manager is talking to the stakeholders and helping the stakeholders see the product, and while doing this, what he's performing. Yeah. So if this is a question, we can definitely say that he's performing validate scope because he is doing. Yeah. So if that is a question, or if the question says that it has been done, what could be the result of such thing? Or if there is any conflict comes in and the customer says this is not what we have asked for, what should PM do in that situation or a next situation? Then we see the validate scope has been done, and now there has been some outputs coming in, and the question is asking about where this output will be taken care. So in this case, the validate scope is generating change request, and now the question is asking, what do you do when the change request get generated in the validate scope?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we need to, like, my sense here is that, see, we don't have to memorize input outputs of the processes. There was like old school thing. At the same time, we visualizing which process the question is talking about can declutter various options from the question space. We understand this is the process, and now the question is about tool and technique. The question is about the output, or the question is about next process after this process, or the question is input to this process. And usually you will find question will hang around in these areas only with a scenario based thing. They will not ask a particular technique or particular name of the output, but in general, they will hang around there.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So the more understanding we get, we get quickly, the more you save time and more you feel confident, because you can clearly see, oh, this process came in, this was the thing, now I know. So the preparation makes you confident, and it makes you better perform in the exam, and also manages your time, and especially for you when you have seen the exam. Now you have already reached very close. So next time you should go with more confidence because you have seen it. Yeah. So it was already there. It's just like some areas of the planning you need to look into.
So with the last thing that you told, the another thing is that you said that I've already seen the questions. So I've already seen the format. So now I should have been more confident. But what I take it in the way is that I've already given one attempt. I'm short of one attempt. So now there's kind of
nothing like pressure.
That. So because the thing is that the next year the format is changing. I have only 2 months left.
See, in general, I have met so many people who had like little less performance than you, and they end up giving the exam within a month, and some went for within a week, and they passed with easiness. So there is a high probability when the person goes for the second attempt, especially after taking feedback in account. Now, if someone just did a first attempt and says, the exam was stupid, let me go it again, then it's a separate case. But when the person is very close, and then the person fixes the gap and goes for the next attempt, there is a very less probability of not making it. That's the first thing. The second thing is, even if exam changes, it's not going to be that big. Yeah. So it is agile based question. So ultimately, especially when you talk about our PMP program, we have already taught you that agile content. We have in each process, we talk about like release planning, the user stories, the burn down chart. We have already taught you all these things. The only difference is they are not yet coming in the exam. Yeah. And maybe after January onwards, they will start coming more and more in the exam. And the exam coverage, when they say 50% of the exam will be based on agile, it may take few months before the 50% coverage reaches, because in general, PMI puts some questions, they see the trend, and then they make it marked. So there is a process, So initial stages, especially there is, if I go with the historical trend, what we have observed whenever the exam change, usually the exam's rigor is reduced. It is less difficult to pass in the initial time. Over a period of time, the rigor starts increasing. So again, I don't see that you are landing there, but in case someone lands there, anyone who might be preparing right now, whatever you are preparing in a PMBOK 6 remains 100% relevant. whoever is giving exam in 2021 also has to prepare PMBOK. The only thing is they also need to see this PMBOK in agile context. They also need to see this PMBOK in a people-related context, working with self-organizing team-related context, and there will be questions coming from that area of context, which are not coming right now. That's the only difference. So I don't take that much pressure for the next change.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
So another thing I would like to discuss is, I think this was already discussed in one of your previous like videos I was watching. So I think one of the candidate asked, like, a lot of times there are questions where we get confused whether the type of communication is actually talking about the stakeholder plan or whether it's a communication management plan. So I've read a lot of places. So a lot of places I've seen the answer is the how about the communication is the communication management plan, and what is the stakeholder engagement plan. But a lot of times the questions, the answer I see is not what I was expecting as per this, and means the concepts are pretty much mixed. So
yeah,
I don't know how to.
See, what I would say is that don't worry about this too much, because there will be some areas you don't have to score 100% in PMP exam. First thing is that, so it's okay. It's okay to have some confusions, and it's more about monitoring and control and this thing. I think you are doing decent there. The idea is, earlier there was no stakeholder management plan. When I say earlier, I think 10 years ago, there was only communication. And then later on, PMI created a separate knowledge area, stakeholder management, and then it became engagement and all those things. And that's why there is always a little bit confusion in the content overlap. Yeah. So what is the essence? Like who I should talk to, what the guy is looking for. Yeah. And that is more about stakeholder engagement. Now, how I am going to satisfy that thing via communication, that's about communication management. So that's why they are very closely interlinked. So see, I am the boss and I want to make sure that people are not wasting my money. So that's my need, and it's a part of my stakeholder management or engagement, stakeholder engagement plan. So my whole thing is I'm too much interested and I want to make sure that people are on track and they are not wasting my money. How do you satisfy that? You say, I will send you the week. Now, when I'm planning the communication, I see that this person is concerned about finances and other details. So all the project monitoring related reports should be sent to him. Yeah. So you plan that, and then you continuously send all those information as per your communication management plan. So setting up exactly the format of the report, the frequency of the report, again, it is a little bit also linked with what I expect, because my need of managing cost kind of drives the format I want to see in that particular report. So the need part, the reason which I need the communication is something is in a stakeholder management or a stakeholder engagement, and the exact execution plan for that need with the help of communication means I am going to send you a bi-weekly report which will have these variances, and this will be the format of it. That's a communication management plan. Now, why I am sending this bi-weekly report? Oh, because this stakeholder needs to be managed very, very carefully, and he's interested in finances. Someone else might not be getting that report. Now, why that person is not getting that report? Because he's not expected to get that particular information. It's a confidential information. So this second part, why part is primarily a stakeholder engagement part of it, stakeholder analysis part of it. You are analyzing who is needing what. But giving that report or not giving that report and planning for that frequency, making the person responsible who should send that report. It's a communication management. Yeah. Which media we should use. It's a communication management. What happens if you miss sending that report? Who should get an escalation? It's a communication management. How frequently we review what happened to the previously sent review? It's a communication management. So communication management is like I would say a dispatch job. You have a messages coming from various areas, and you are dispatching that messages to a respective addresses. Yeah, messages are not owned by you. The addresses are not owned by you. Yeah, addresses coming from the stakeholder engagement plan. The messages coming from the different project performance information. Now, all the messages, and there are recipients. You just need to define that mapping in a communication management plan, that such type of messages need to be sent to such kind of people, and you keep executing it in your communication knowledge area. So that's how I can see the difference between these two.
But sir, for example, if there's an option in the question that the stakeholder was not classified correctly as far as his influence or impact, so in that case, the option would not be the communication, but the stakeholder engagement plan, right?
Yes. And then if there is any particular question, we can discuss that. You can put into a forum as well. But yes, if I see there is a challenge related to classification, the stakeholder related processes should come into the picture. If there is a challenge related to the right representation of information, the communication related processes should come into picture. If there is a need of additional column, the communication should come into the challenge. Yeah, if somebody is missing communicating those information on a periodic basis, communication should come into the focus area. Yeah, some change request or something has to be made.
Yeah. So one more question. So a lot of times, like I've seen the questions that where some risk happened. Okay. Now the options for one of the main options is you should update the risk register of whatever happened. And other options are like do something X, do something Y, reach to stakeholders. So this reporting to like adding the risk on the risk register is like, as far as what I gather from like all the knowledge is that it should be the first thing it needs to be done. But sometimes if the risk is very important that, for example, some change request needs to be raised or he needs to analyze the impact of that risk. So at that times, like whatever you have, for example, if I made up my mind that, okay, in such kind of scenarios, risk register should be the answer. But when you see the option where the change is very critical, and instead of first reporting the risk register, you should actually do something like raise a change request or request for some contingency reserve. So how to tackle with those kind of scenarios?
Yeah. So it's a simple, same formula: acknowledge, analyze, act. Yeah. So risk register is an acknowledgement that something has occurred. Yeah. Before acknowledgement, how do you inform other people that, guys, come on, I need some analysis from you? So think like that you are the guy, and you alone cannot act upon it. You need to bring 10 people here. Now, how do you bring those 10 people here? How do they get a message? How do they get an announcement that, guys, this has happened? Now, the announcement happens with the help of that acknowledgement, that we acknowledge that some event has occurred and the respective stakeholder, please come in the room. Yeah. So they come in the room. Yeah. So that's a acknowledgement happened. The trigger has been done. And once they come in the room, then we talk about what should we do, guys? Yeah, they analyze, they find out what should we do, and then we act on it. Now, if in a general PMP scenarios, it's very unlikely. But if it is something like you are the only person, you have to do everything end to end, you don't need any support, then you may directly do the act part. Technically speaking, you don't have to acknowledge, you don't have to analyze, and there is only one thing you have to do. There is no other alternative. There is only one alternative. Yeah, there is a fire and you just have to run out of the room. There is no other alternative. It is not defined and there is no scope of defining any other alternative. Then you directly act because there is a fire, just run. Yeah, because this is the only alternative defined. But when it is not like that, where there is a possibility of multiple alternatives, there is a possibility of you need to talk to people, then you need to acknowledge, analyze, and then act. Yeah. So if you see a fire alarm kind of events, then you don't have to acknowledge and analyze. You just have to act. Yeah. Because it's a clear path. There has been a clear rule. Whenever it happens, do just one thing, run. Yeah, there is no other thing you have to do. Then you just run. But if there is nothing like this defined, then you need to acknowledge, get the people together, analyze it, and act on it.
Sure, sir. Yeah. And so, one last question.
Go ahead.
So, a lot of times the options also contains like we need to talk to that person. For example, if a team member is not performing good, one of the options is fire him. Second is talk to his function manager. Third is talk to him and see what problems he's facing. Now, usually like the question that I've solved, it's always better to first approach that person who is not performing well and see what his problem is. But sometimes the options is not that, because it has already been asked by someone from the higher management that this person is not. So option was not, this option was not correct. So he, maybe the answer was that find another resource because you have a time crunch and there is no restriction on the budget, and so instead of spending more time on that person, that what went wrong, how you can correct it, since the situation is very critical and you need to deliver much on the time, so you should just get another resource from your within the organization and start working on it.
Okay.
Now,
yeah. So see, one thing is very difficult to answer it without seeing the whole question and the option, but there are some ideas. One thing is that this is an executing process group. So whenever you are getting these kind of things in your mind, you can think of that there's an executing process group which I need to make strong. And I believe that a lot of people related issues are kind of a dominating thing you see in the executing process groups. Yeah. So those answers makes you good in your executing process groups. Now, the second thing is, see, again, we follow acknowledge, analyze, and act. Now, you have been seeing one person is not performing well, yeah, and the project is at a very critical stage. What do you do next? Now, it is not just about the talking to person is a good idea or not, or hiring someone else is a good idea. Both of them are option, yeah, and you need to find which option is appropriate in this particular case. So, what is the trigger? There has been issue. So, some issue has been raised, maybe by the stakeholders or maybe by the developer, by the second team member, that this is happening and this performance is making us go derailed. So there is an issue, you acknowledge the issue, and then you are doing an analysis of the issue, and based on that you will raise a change request or a change your plan with change request or without change request, where you will have a next plan of action. Now, what could be possible things? You may have a new person coming in, then you need to plan for training for him, you need to update the budget for him, you also need to talk about his closing thing of it, he will do some documentation, knowledge transfer. So you have planned a lot of things, you need to do something here. Yeah. And if you want to talk to the guy, then you may need to have some agreement with him, come up with a working agreement, come up with some review required and requisition, some review points, which will say that, okay, we are giving you a kind of a 1 month time to prove that you are good for this job. And if you don't prove yourself, then we have to do something else. So these all are actions you will take. Yeah, possibly. And all actions are valid. Yeah. And there is nothing like good and bad, because sometimes you hire a new guy, he may take 2 months to come at the par. You understand that Tuckman ladder, that the whole team will go from again a kind of a storming area again, because the new person will take time to adjust and the whole equation will get disturbed. So those all things will come, the team performance will go down because the composition of team is changing. Now, is it good thing to do? Is it a bad thing to do? We don't know. It depends upon who is that person, how the severe situation is, and how you are replacing him. Yeah, it might be the good idea if I take a default thing, better to stay without that person, yeah, than getting someone else, because getting someone else will slow you down. So if you're at a critical stage, better you may say, okay, we don't need this guy, and probably we will work with less people. So there are multiple paths. So what I say for exam perspective is limit to what has been given in the question. Try to sense what the question is trying to check, what kind of a thing they are trying to check from your mind. Are they trying to check that are you jumping to the conclusion without analysis? Or are they trying to check that do you understand how the reward and recognition should be handled? Or do you understand how the conflict should be managed? So when you read the question, try to find out what this question is trying to check, yeah, in me, what skill they are trying to evaluate. And once you get that, yeah, you get a sense of it that, okay, they might be trying to evaluate how PM is going to handle this. Once you do that, then the options will become very clear to you. You may sense two tentative things. This question might be trying to do this and might be trying to do that. And you limit there, and then you see the options. Because see, it's technically speaking, you know, it's still a multiple choice exam, and many such situations cannot be handled in just multiple choice option. You know, there could be a variety of things one can do. So we need to think big, but again, come back to the question and the options available. We can't
so for example, the same question, if the one of the options would have been that get experienced person who has worked on a similar projects in this project. So like what you mentioned, that getting a resource, you might need to spend time in learning curve and all the formalities. But if you're getting a resource from the organization who has worked on a similar project, then the amount of time to get back on track might be less than convincing the existing resource who is not performing well.
Yeah. Now there are two things. One thing is that this question might be testing you, that do you understand that the new people take time to learn and adjust in the system, and so that you prefer the person who is coming from the same organization. If they are testing this part, this answer is right. If they are trying to test you, that is it always good to work with the existing guy who has developed some understanding and some relationship with the project team, or if whenever face a problem, just find a replacement who is knowledgeable enough. So if they are trying to test you in the second thing, then this option is wrong, because they are kind of, it could be a right option, it could be a trap also. So I don't know what it was.
Also, it creates a negative impression of the PM that every time he gets a new resource rather than solving the problems.
Yes. So we also need to see, sometimes you see some hint coming in, that hint is for the answer or is hint for the trap, because both the things are possible. So we need to see, okay, is this question is trying to trap me, or I have a sufficient reason to believe this is not a trap, this is the right path, then we take it. Yeah. So it all depends upon what were the other options. If you see, if the options are hire a new person, approach the resource manager and raise a recruitment thing, get the person from the different team. Yeah. If these are the only three options, and I don't see any possibilities of working with this guy, because you have already worked with this guy 10 times and he has been given enough warning and you are done with him. Yeah. So assuming if that question is saying, then definitely I will prefer to get the person from the same organization with a similar experience. Then I go with that. Yeah. Because question is telling me that this effort has been done before. Acknowledge and analyze has happened already. Now you need to act out of what possible you see in the options. Then I focus on action only, because I do get sense that analysis has been already done.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good.
So what my general suggestion is, see, I think just try to work on the confidence for giving the PMP exam. And I think my view is just become more and more comfortable with all the processes of planning and executing. See, planning is relatively easy to master. Executing will have all these issues, there will be more variability in executing. Yeah. So whereas planning is a little bit straightforward, it required preparation, because mostly the planning will be about what next, or some technique and some way of managing thing, identification of risk. Risk is a heavy planning topic. The project integration management is a heavy planning topic. Time related things, scheduling and all are heavy planning topic. So if you understand these knowledge areas and the planning processes, you should perform good. So my recommendation is work strong on the planning and then improve the executing processes, especially like communication and people is the critical thing in case of executing. But from your result perspective, I see if you boost yourself in the planning, you are good. But at the same time, don't ignore other processes as well. So spend some time in reviewing the complete PMBOK process content again. So maybe take an alternative approach where once you focus and just prepare, watch the videos and read the PMBOK again and get a better understanding, and then take multiple practice tests, and cross check, discuss those questions in the forum, and also participate when others are discussing in the forum, talking about what they are speaking about. At our forum, I think more than 1,000 questions are discussed since we started that forum. So if you go back and check other old questions which got discussed and people had doubt, that itself will give you good information, how possibly we can think about. Yeah.
Sure, sir. So one thing that we discussed in the starting about the float questions. So the thing is that like float questions usually have a lot of activities. Like sometimes might be only 4, the way you explained in your video in the material, but a lot of times there is 6, 7. And to get a free float for a particular activity, what my understanding is, you have to first do forward from starting till end and then reverse and then see what's coming for that particular. So is there any shortcut to just get exactly answer for that particular activity rather than carrying out this complete process?
See, what I can sense here is that the first and foremost thing you need to explore is that whenever you are looking at critical path related questions or time management related question, you need to detect the critical path. So if you can quickly detect the critical path, you know that path has 0 float.
Correct.
Yeah. So once, and then when you can see the question, is the first thing is that is this particular activity lying on the critical path or not lying on the critical path? Yeah. So if you see that activity lying on the critical path, then your question is over. You don't have to think about float anymore. Once you but it requires a little bit practice, and the practice of forward backward you will do, you will know quickly identification of a critical path over a time. And once the critical path timings are calculated well, because in that case you only do a forward or backward, it's the same. So you just write their forward and backward time. So if I have a complete network diagram and I have a 2 path, one path is completely filled, then I am left with is the rest of the activities, and they will take less time to go forward and backward, because I have figured it out the critical path. But it takes little time so to detect the critical path without error. Time means practice. So once you practice more and more such questions and you develop a skill to detect a critical path fast, then I think you should be able to do it at a faster pace. And over a period of time, we do see not many such questions will appear also. So maybe there could be 3-4 questions in you may say 6-7, but not much necessary more than 2-3 will take that long critical path view. So.
But sir, out of 200 questions, I heard there are a couple of dummy questions also.
Yes. So see, again, the idea of dummy question for us is not much relevant. You can, because some of the question where you see there is no sense, the question options look stupid and all those things, you can fairly assume it could be a dummy question and you can ignore it. That's the only thing you can do. What is dummy question? The whole story is like this, like the PMP exam is changing. So from 1st January, we need new questions. But how do we know which question is right and which question is wrong? Because this is a very subjective matter. There is no mathematics. You can't just say this form as per the formula, this has to be right. It's a collective judgment which looks like this is the right way to do. Now, so what PMI does they put these questions in the real exam. They observe how people are reacting to it, how the good performers are reacting to it, how the bad performers are reacting to it. And based on that, they find the right answer for it when they qualify it as a final question. And if they don't see a clear trend, then they retire that question. So especially when you see these kind of changes happening from 1st January onwards, so the questions which will pop up as a real questions on the 1st January, many of them might be coming as a dummy question right now.
Okay. But so dummy questions don't carry any marks, right?
Yeah, but you can't detect it, so you don't know. So for us, it is more or less useless.
So that's what my question is. So you said that it's always okay, no one can perform 100%. But if I'm targeting 100%, keeping in mind the dummy questions, then I may be able to achieve 85%. Because 15% will always be dummy.
No. So your scoring will be done out of that 85% only. So the 20. So for us, so if there are 100 questions and 10 questions are dummy, but your scoring will done only based on what you score out of 90 questions. Those 10 will be anyway not counted. There is no right or wrong for it. It is just a survey. You can say it was a survey collection. It was not a evaluation based on those questions.
But we need to perform good because we don't know the dummy questions, so that we get a confidence that even though dummy we take it out, still we are good. Passing this.
And I think, don't take too much pressure. It is just very close thing. You have prepared well. You just need to focus on planning more than executing. Though you performed well in executing, but I would say planning more than executing, because I see it's little easy to fix. And executing definitely by way of doing more and more practice tests, taking care of humanistic approaches in human resource management and the communication, and that area is mainly about and project integration management related stuff is something more into an executing space. I think you should.
So the mind mapping thing that you told in the starting from the PM book, do you think that will help me in the planning phase?
Yes. Primarily to figure out the next. So many times the planning thing is not necessarily always in sequence. Say you worked on time, then you may impact the cost. You are working on the cost, you may impact the resource, because of the cost you may end up changing some resourcing equations. So it is not always true to say that after cost I go next and I baseline it. after resource, I need to work on the cost. There is a possibility of coming reverse as well. Say you might have thought of getting a one particular server, and that is what you plan in your resource management. You also thought of hiring an expert guy. That was also part of your resource plan. And when you went into cost, you realize both of these things are expensive and you remove them. Now what happened? You go back, you have to change your resource thing. Yeah. So there is a possibility of going back. And when you see that map, you can get those visibility well. And they will help you to figure out what should I do next? Because you could see a scenario where you are saying, yeah, the resource was planned well, everything was good, but we find it was too expensive. So we realized that we need to find some alternative while doing cost. The time plan was already done, the resource plan was already done, but while you reach to a cost, you realize this cannot be done. Now, the process chart, the book process chart may not have all these flows now, because now it's like evolving.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So that is good for a starting perspective. So you get a little picture what is the project management is all about. But when you see these maps, then probably you'll say, okay, things can come back also. It is not just one flow. And even though you were just planning it, there was no purchase of that particular equipment yet, but it was a reverse now. Yeah.
Sure.
Good. And let's get started. Plan for it. If you need any specific, if you get some set of questions and you want to have another interaction like this before December, we can do that. Yeah. At that time, you can come maybe with your set of things and make good use of forum.eisenbridge.com. I'm sure you will do good this time.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Nice talking to you. Yeah.
Same here. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.